In this video, we'll be talking about using scientific notation in some word problems, how to look for keywords to add, subtract, multiply, or divide based on the question, and use the rules on how to use the operations with scientific notation. So in my first example, I have in 2012, the population of New York State was about 2 times 10 to the 7th power. And population of state of Oregon was about 4 times 10 to the 6th. Well, when you're looking at numbers in scientific notation, it's not as friendly to connect as the real number. In other words, what is the actual value in standard form of this scientific notation? So I strongly suggest to change to standard form. So we have New York, population of 2 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, 7 times, which becomes 20 million. And when I think of 20 million, it makes more sense than 2 times 10 to the 7th power. So connecting with the real or standard number, it's better. Oregon, 4 times 10 to the 6th, that would be 4 million. It would be 4 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. So if you multiply 4 times 10 6 times, that's your 4 million. Now I'm going to have 2 different questions for this situation. So using the data in the problem, my first question is going to be, how many times greater is the population of New York than the population of Oregon? In other words, now I see that New York is higher population, Oregon is less. So how many times does 4 million go into 20? That's the essential question here. How many times 4 million would go into 20? So let's say 4 million plus 4 million plus 4 million plus 4 million. How many times would it take for 4 million to get into 20? So that is solved through division, or you can use the numbers in standard form. So let's say New York divided by the Oregon number, which is 20 million, divided by 4 million. And here you can divide by a million to simplify the fraction, where if you divide by a million, you reduce this fraction to 20 over 4, where 20 over 4 is division of 20 by 4, which is 5. So the population of New York is 5 times greater. That one is our answer in a division, and it is done through using standard form. I can use the numbers in scientific notation, and again, New York divided by Oregon, that is telling me how many times the population of Oregon goes into, and that now I'm going to use scientific notation so you can see the difference between the two. So in New York, we had about 2 times 10 to the 7th power, which is 20 million. In Oregon, we had 4 times 10 to the 6th. And I'm going to use the rules of division to see if I come up to the same answer. So first, I have to divide the numerical basis to divide by 4, multiply times 10, and then the power of 10 will be 7 minus 6, because when we divide two powers with the same base, we keep the base and subtract the exponents. Dividing 2 by 4 is 0.5 times 10 to the first. Now check, in order to have the answer, we need to have one digit that is not a 0, so you can't have a 0 right here. It has to be now changed to proper scientific notation because this is not proper. So the decimal here is in tens place, 5/10. That will be in scientific notation 5 times 10 to the negative first. Bring down 10 to the first, and that will be 5 times 10 to the 0 power, because -1 plus 1 is 0, and that answer in scientific notation is equal to 5 because 10 to the 0 power using 0 exponent rule equals 1, and 1 times 5 is 5. So this answer is in scientific notation. For the same information that I had about the population in New York and Oregon, I'm going to have a different question. How many more people live in New York than Oregon? So how many more? That means I know that there are more people in New York. The question is how many more? So that's our subtraction problem. So we're going to take the value of the people in New York and subtract the population of Oregon, and that will be the difference between the two. So what I'm going to do is take my 20 million, which is higher population in New York State, subtract my 4 million, which is the lower population of Oregon, and then see what's the difference between the two. So we have 16 million difference. It means that in New York there are 16 million more people than in Oregon. So I can convert this now to scientific notation and answer. And that in New York there are 1.6 times 10 to the 7th power more people. Than in Oregon. So when we record the answer, it has to be in scientific notation. Let's see another problem. The TV show had 3.5 times 10 to the 6 viewers for their first episode, and 8.5 times 10 to the 6 power for the second episode. How many viewers did they have overall? So the question is now overall or total or together or combined are key questions for additions. So in this situation we have first episode, scientific notation is always the best to be converted to standard to understand the value of the number. So we have 3 times 10 to the 6th power. 10 to the 6th power is a million. So to multiply that by 3, there will be 3 million, and then 500. So we have 3,500,000. And then in the second episode, it looks like there are more viewers. Maybe the people said, hey, it's a good show, check it out. And then you have 8 times 10 to the 6, so that's 8 million. 8,500,000. And the question is, how many viewers were the total overall first and second episode combined, so that means addition problem. And what we're going to add is the viewers of the first episode and second, and then convert the answer to scientific notation. So the total number of viewers is 1.2 in scientific notation times the power of 10. So how many viewers did they have overall? So we're going to say total number of viewers, or overall number of viewers. Is 1.2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 10 to the 7th power, converted to scientific notation, 12 million. In 2013, we have Los Angeles Dodgers opening day payroll was about 2.16 times 10 to the 8th power, large number, and Houston Astros opening payroll was about 2.4 times 10 to the 7th power. How much higher was the Dodgers payroll? So Dodgers payroll is higher. Let's see how much is that in standard notation. And that is 216, and that is 216 million. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 after the 2. If you look at that number, it's ginormous, but it is easier to understand that that's a big number. As a volume, we have 2.4 times 10 to the 7th power. That will be 24 million. So when we read this number as their standard form, now we can see that 216 million is a lot of money. That is a large number, and then 24 million is less. So 216 million and 24 million. Then we have the question, how much higher? So we know it's higher. Now the question is how much higher? That is asking for the difference. The difference between the two numbers is subtraction. So we're going to subtract our 216 million minus 24 million to see the difference of these two amounts, and that will be the answer. How much higher is the payroll? Which is 192 million. $192 million. It is the difference between the two. So we are going to answer now in scientific notation. So we have to convert that back to scientific. So we have Dodgers payroll was 1.92. That means we're converting now to scientific notation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 10 to the 8th power dollars higher. difference. Let's see another example. Corporation earned a profit of 2.5 times 10 to the fourth. That is the number of money they earned for 1 times 10 to the second days in a row. So the corporation earned a profit of 2.5 times 10 to the fourth dollars for 100 days in a row, which is 1 times 10 to the second power. Was the corporation's total profit during this time period? So here we have a key that it says 100 days in a row, or 1.1 times 10 to the second power days in a row. So the earnings for scientific notation changed to standard is $25,000, and the number of days is 100, and the key is that it's in a row. What that means that every day they earn 25,000 for 100 days in a row. So it's like first day 25,000, second day 25,000 more, then 25,000 more, 25,000 more, 25,000 more. So every single day they are earning 25,000 more for 100 days in a row. So that means that we're going to multiply 25,000 times the number of days that they are earning that amount. So it's like 25 day 1 times 2 day 2 times 3 day 3. So in a 100-day period is the multiplication of your 25,000 times the 100, which can be done in standard form. Multiplying by 1, 0, 0, 0, 5, and 2, and that converted to scientific notation, which is my 2,500,000, 2.5 times 10 to the 6th power. Or we can do this multiplication using the rules of exponents and scientific notation. So the first number was 2.5 times 10 to the 4th power. That was the earning, and then we need to multiply that by the number of days that the earnings were made, and that's 100, or 1 times 10 to the 2nd power in scientific notation. So in scientific notation we multiply the numerical basis first, and then multiply by 10 to the power of 4 plus 2, where we keep the base and add the exponents. 2.5 times 1 is still 2.5, and the power of 10 is 6th, which is the same answer that we had in standard form. So we can answer that the total profit was 2.5 times 10 to the 6th power, and that is 2,500,000. One more. The population of a large town is 4 times 10 to the 6th power, and the population of an empty village is 5 times 10 to the 3rd. How many times greater? How many times greater is the population of a large town? How many times? It means how many times does it take? So in a large town we have 4 times 10 to the 6th, that's 4 million people. And then we have an empty village where we have just 5,000 people. So the question is, how many times greater is the population of the big town? In other words, how many times 5,000 goes into 400? So that is a division problem. So we have to divide a large over small or empty to see how many times 4 million divided by 5,000. As we simplify fractions, we can divide by 1,000, and that becomes what is 4,000 divided by 5. 40 divided by 5 is 8, and then we have 2 more zeros, so that's 800 times. 800 times can be written in scientific notation as 8 or 8.0 times 10 to the second power. I'm going to show you this exact problem using the rules of exponents so you can tell the difference, what is the better way to do. So in the large town we have 4 times 10 to the 6th power, and then in the empty village we have 5 times 10 to the 3rd, where we have to divide the numerical bases first. So we have 4 divided by 5, and then keep the base of 10 and subtract the exponents. When you divide 4 by 5, 5 doesn't go into 4, so I add a decimal and a 0, but 5 goes into 40 8 times. So that is 0.8 times 10 to the 3rd power. But then this is not proper scientific notation. The proper scientific notation has to have 1 digit, so I'm converting that to 8 point. 10's place will be 10 to the negative 1st, and then bring down 10 to the 3rd. So now I have to combine these two exponents by adding them, keep the base, add the exponents, and that will be 8 times 10 to the negative 1 plus 3 will be 2nd power, which is the same answer, but we did it 2 different ways. So to answer how many times greater is the population of the large town, you say the population of large town is 8 times 10 to the 2nd power greater. The population of large town is 8 times 10 to the 2nd power times greater.